Before the gleam of silver first caught a Briton's eye, life was measured in different terms. It was a world of barter, of direct exchange. A farmer with a surplus of grain would not reach for a purse of coins to buy a new axe head. Instead, he would negotiate, trading his harvest directly with the blacksmith. A fine woolen cloak might be worth a sturdy pot, or perhaps a few good chickens. This system was personal, built on relationships and trust. It was a tangible economy, where the value of something was tied directly to its usefulness. You could see, feel, and use the wealth you held in your hands. It was a slow, deliberate way of life, dictated by the seasons and the needs of the community. This was not a primitive or simple society, far from it. People had sophisticated ways of understanding value. They used objects that were universally desirable as a kind of proto-currency. Items like iron currency bars, long sword-shaped lengths of metal, have been found in hoards across southern Britain. These were not tools or weapons, but standardized units of wealth. A person's status might be measured by the number of cattle they owned, or the quality of the bronze jewelry they wore. Salt, a vital preservative, was another valuable commodity, traded over long distances. These were the treasures of their time, markers of power and prosperity in a world without the jingle of a pocketful of silver. Contact with the continent, with the Gauls across the Channel, brought new ideas and new objects. Roman and Greek traders were already exploring the edges of the known world, and their influence began to seep into Britain. Fine pottery, glass beads and amphorae filled with wine started to appear in the settlements of powerful British chieftains. These were luxury goods, exotic and rare. They were not just for use, they were symbols of connection to a wider, more complex world. Owning these items showed that a leader had the power and the networks to acquire things from far away. This trade slowly introduced the very concept of a portable, valuable object that wasn't just for immediate use. This slow trickle of foreign goods paved the way for a revolutionary idea. The merchants from Gaul and beyond brought something else with them: coins. At first, these were probably seen as little more than curious trinkets. They were small, shiny discs of metal, stamped with strange designs of horses and abstract faces. But they carried a powerful idea within them. They represented a fixed amount of value, guaranteed by a distant authority. This was a radical departure from trading a bag of wheat for a spearhead. It was the first whisper of a new kind of economy, one based not on goods, but on money. The stage was set for Britain to create its own version of this powerful new tool. Around the 2nd century BC, something extraordinary happened in Britain. The tribes in the south, those with the closest links to the continent, started making their own coins. The very first ones were cast in a tin-rich bronze, but soon they began to work with silver. These weren't crude copies. They were unique expressions of Celtic art and identity. The designs were abstract, almost dreamlike. They featured disjointed horses, swirling patterns, hidden faces, and powerful symbols like the sun and moon. These images weren't just decoration. They were packed with meaning, telling stories of myths, gods, and the power of the natural world. Each coin was a tiny piece of tribal art, a miniature masterpiece. These first British silver coins were not for buying bread at a market. They were prestige items, tools of power for the elite. A tribal king or chieftain would use them to reward his loyal warriors, to pay for services, or to make offerings to the gods. They were a way of controlling wealth and cementing alliances. Hoards of these coins are often found buried in the ground, sometimes near important religious sites or hill forts. These were not the forgotten savings of ordinary people. They were deliberate deposits, perhaps gifts to the earth gods to ensure a good harvest or victory in battle. Owning and distributing these coins was a statement of authority. The designs on the coins also served as a tribal signature. Different tribes, like the Atrebates, the Iceni, or the Dobuni, developed their own distinct styles. An expert can look at one of these small silver discs and tell you exactly which tribe made it, and sometimes even which ruler. The famous Iceni tribe, later led by Boudicca, created beautiful coins with a distinctive angular horse. The Durotriges in the southwest produced simpler, more abstract pellets of silver. These coins were a declaration of independence and power. They said, "This is our land, our people, and our wealth." They were a badge of identity in a competitive and often violent tribal landscape. The very act of making a coin was a powerful statement. It required access to precious metal, the skill to create dies for stamping, and the authority to have the coin accepted. The silver itself was valuable, but the coin was more than just its metal content. It was an idea, backed by the strength of the tribe and its leader. These Celtic silvers represent a pivotal moment. They show British society becoming more complex, more hierarchical, and more connected to the wider European world. They are the true ancestors of every British coin that followed, the first chapter in a story that would unfold over 2,000 years. The Roman invasion in AD 43 was a cataclysm. It changed everything, and that included the money people used. The beautiful, abstract silver coins of the Celtic tribes were swept away. In their place came the organized, uniform, and powerful currency of Rome. The legions marched, and behind them came the administrators, the tax collectors, and the merchants. They all brought Roman money. The most important of these coins was the silver denarius. This was the workhorse of the Roman economy. It was a soldier's pay, a trader's profit, and a citizen's tax. It was a coin that was recognized and accepted from the misty hills of Britannia to the hot sands of Egypt. The denarius was completely different from a Celtic coin. It was a tool of imperial propaganda. On one side, you would find the portrait of the ruling emperor, Claudius Nero Vespasian. This was not an abstract face. It was a realistic, powerful image. It was a constant reminder of who was in charge. This was a man, a godlike figure, whose authority was absolute. The other side of the coin, the reverse, often showed images of military victories, gods and goddesses, or buildings constructed by the emperor. Each coin was a tiny billboard, celebrating the power, piety, and success of Rome. It was a message that everyone, even those who could not read, could understand. For the people of Britain, this new money brought profound changes. The old barter systems and tribal coins did not disappear overnight, especially in the remote countryside. But in the new towns and cities like Londinium or Camulodunum, the Roman system took hold. Markets were established where goods could be bought and sold for Roman sesterti, dupondi, and denarii. For the first time, Britain was fully integrated into a massive, monetized economy that spanned a continent. A farmer could sell his grain for silver coins and then use that money to buy pottery made in Gaul or oil from Spain. This was a new kind of freedom and a new kind of dependency. The Romans also established mints in Britain, including a major one in Londinium. These mints produced official Roman coins, further cementing the province's place within the empire. The supply of silver, however, was not endless. Over the centuries, the amount of silver in the denarius was reduced as emperors struggled to pay for the vast army and bureaucracy. This debasement led to inflation and economic instability. By the time the Roman legions departed in the early 5th century, the monetary system was in chaos. They left behind a legacy of roads, towns, and laws. But they also left a population that had grown used to the idea of a universal silver currency, an idea that would survive the dark ages to come. After the Romans left, Britain splintered. The grand unified economy collapsed. For a time, it was as if the clock was turned back. People returned to barter and local exchange. Coins became scarce, treasured relics of a lost golden age. But the memory of money lingered. The new Anglo-Saxon kingdoms that rose from the ashes of Roman Britain began to feel their way back towards a monetary system. At first, they used imported gold coins from Merovingian France, known as thrimsas. But soon, they began striking their own small, thick silver coins. These were the first shattas, a word that simply means wealth or treasure. These shattas were fascinating coins. Produced from about AD 680 to 750, they were tiny, often no bigger than a little fingernail, but they were packed with vibrant and diverse imagery. Some copied Roman designs, showing crude portraits or figures of a wolf and twins. Others displayed strange, almost alien-like figures, birds, and geometric patterns that echoed the pagan art of the time. There was no single standard. Different kingdoms and even different towns produced their own unique styles. They were a sign of growing trade and emerging royal power, a tentative step back towards a society where value could be held in a small piece of silver. Then, in the late 8th century, a major change happened. The powerful Mercian king, Offa, introduced a new coin. It was larger, thinner, and made of good quality silver. It was based on the Frankish denier, and it would become known as the penny. This was a revolutionary reform. Offa's pennies were of a consistent weight and purity, and they bore his name and portrait, a clear statement of royal authority. For the first time since the Romans, England had a standardized silver currency. This made trade much easier and allowed the king to collect taxes and pay his followers in a reliable form of money. The silver penny was born, and it would dominate English currency for the next 500 years. The arrival of the Vikings in the 9th century brought chaos, but it also brought a flood of silver. The Vikings were traders as much as raiders. They loved silver, not just as coins, but as bullion hacked up pieces of jewellery, ingots, and arm rings, all valued by weight. This hack silver economy influenced the Anglo-Saxons. Viking leaders in the Danelaw, the part of England they controlled, also minted their own silver pennies. Some even copied the designs of English kings like Alfred the Great. This period was a constant struggle for control, and coins were a weapon in that war. An Anglo-Saxon penny and a Viking penny were both pieces of silver, but they represented two competing claims to the land of England. When William the Conqueror seized the English throne in 1066, he found a kingdom with a remarkably sophisticated currency system. The Anglo-Saxon silver penny was honestly one of the finest in Europe. William didn't abolish it. Instead, he took control of it. The Normans understood the power that came with controlling the money supply, They maintained the high quality of the penny and the network of regional mints. However, every few years, a new coin type, or issue, was ordered. Everyone had to exchange their old pennies for new ones, and the king took a fee for the service. This was a clever and, very profitable form of taxation. The design of the penny became strictly standardized. The front, or obverse, always showed a forward-facing portrait of the monarch. This was a powerful symbol. It wasn't the realistic portrait of a Roman emperor, but a stylized image of kingship itself. The king's name would be written around the edge. The reverse of the coin almost always featured a cross. This was not just a religious symbol. The cross design made it easy to cut the penny into halves or quarters to make halfpennies and farthings. Four things, as they were called. This was how people made small change for centuries. A cut penny was a common sight in any medieval marketplace. The demand for more coins grew as the population and economy expanded. But the supply of silver was a constant problem. A lot of silver had to be imported from the continent, and kings were always looking for new sources. During the reign of Edward I in the late 13th century, a major reform took place. For the first time, round halfpennies and farthings were minted. This stopped the practice of cutting pennies, which frankly was often done dishonestly. Edward also introduced a new, larger silver coin, the groat, worth 4 pennies. This was a big step, showing that the economy needed higher value coins for larger transactions. Life for the silver penny was not always smooth. Coin clipping was a serious crime. People would shave tiny slivers of silver from the edge of coins. Over time, a clipped coin would be much lighter and contain less silver, undermining trust in the currency. The punishment for being caught was severe, often involving the loss of a hand. Another problem was the quality of the minting itself. Coins were made by hand, with a hammer and 2 dies. This meant that the quality could vary quite a bit. Despite these challenges, the silver penny, groat, and the smaller fractions were the backbone of medieval life. They paid for the stone that built cathedrals and the wages of the men who fought in France. The Tudor dynasty brought a new flair to English coinage. Henry VII, the first Tudor king, introduced a magnificent new silver coin, the shilling, also known as a testoon. It was worth 12 pennies and featured the first truly realistic profile portrait of a monarch since Roman times. This was a statement of a new kind of kingship, one based on Renaissance ideas of majesty and personal authority. He also minted the first gold sovereign. The silver coins, from the groat down to the halfpenny, now carried this new, lifelike image of the king. It was a clear break from the stylized, anonymous faces of the medieval period. The king's face was on the money, and it was a face you could recognize. His son, Henry VIII, continued this trend. His early coins are famous for their fine portraits, showing a handsome, powerful young monarch. But Henry's expensive wars and extravagant lifestyle created a huge problem. He needed more money. His solution, beginning in the 1540s, was disastrous. He ordered the mints to reduce the amount of silver in the coins and replace it with base metal, like copper. This policy is known as the Great Debasement. At first, the change wasn't obvious. The coins were given a thin wash of silver, but this soon wore off, especially on the high points of the design, like the king's nose. This earned Henry the unflattering nickname, Old Copper Nose. People lost all faith in the currency. Why accept a coin that was mostly worthless copper? Prices for goods skyrocketed, causing massive inflation and widespread economic hardship. Foreign merchants refused to accept English money. It was a national crisis. The debasement continued under Edward VI, with coins being produced that were barely 1/4 silver. People hoarded the older, good-quality silver coins, and only the bad money circulated. This is a classic economic principle. Bad money drives out good. The country's financial reputation was in tatters. It fell to Henry's daughter, Queen Elizabeth I, to clean up the mess. One of her first and most important acts as queen was a Great Recoinage. In 1560–61, she recalled all the debased coins. People brought their old copper-nosed shillings and worthless groats to be melted down. The mints then worked tirelessly to issue a whole new currency, struck in fine silver and gold. This restored public confidence and stabilized the economy. It was a massive undertaking and a huge success. Elizabeth's coins, bearing her famous portrait, were a symbol of this new age of stability and prosperity. They re-established the principle that an English silver coin was a coin to be trusted. The 17th century, the era of the Stuart kings, saw a revolution in how coins were made. For over 1500 years, coins in Britain had been made by hand. A craftsman would place a blank metal disc between two dies and strike it with a heavy hammer. This hammered coinage was often irregular in shape, and the quality of the strike could be inconsistent. But a new technology was arriving from France, the screw press. This machine used a large weighted screw to press the dies together with immense and even force. The result was a perfectly round, well-struck coin that was far superior to the old hammered pieces. Charles II, restored to the throne in 1660, embraced this new technology. From 1662, all new silver and gold coins were machine-made, or milled. This was the end of the hammered coinage era. The new milled coins had another innovation, a lettered or patterned edge. This made it impossible for coin clippers to shave off silver without it being immediately obvious. The new silver coins included the crown, worth 5 shillings, half crown, shilling, and smaller denominations. A famous new design also appeared on the copper coinage, and later on silver, the figure of Britannia, a female personification of Britain, seated with a shield and trident. This transition was not without problems. For decades, the old, lightweight hammered coins circulated alongside the new, heavy, milled coins. Predictably, people hoarded the new coins and spent the old ones. The situation became so bad that by the 1690s, the government, with the help of men like the famous scientist Sir Isaac Newton, who was warden of the mint, organized another Great Recoinage. All hammered silver coins were recalled and replaced with new milled money. It was a costly and difficult process, but it finally created a modern, uniform currency for the nation. Newton's scientific mind brought new levels of precision and quality control to the Royal Mint. The Stuart period also saw the establishment of the Bank of England and the birth of a national debt. Money was becoming more complex. It was no longer just about the silver in your hand. It was also about paper money, credit, and government finance. Yet silver coins remained at the heart of daily life. The silver crown, with its magnificent portrait of the monarch, was a symbol of wealth and stability. The shilling paid a worker's wages, and the smaller sixpence and threepence bought everyday goods. The machine had transformed the silver coin, making it more secure and reliable than ever before, ready for the industrial age that was just around the corner. The Industrial Revolution of the 18th and 19th centuries changed Britain forever. The population boomed, factories sprang up, and a new urban working class was created. This new economy needed vast amounts of reliable coinage to pay wages and facilitate trade. The old system was under strain. A crucial moment came in 1816 after the Napoleonic Wars. This was the time of the Great Recoinage, a reform that set the standard for modern British money. Britain officially adopted the gold standard, meaning the value of the pound was fixed to a certain amount of gold. Silver coins were now token coinage. This meant their value was not based on the metal they contained, but on the guarantee of the government. This was a fundamental shift. A silver shilling was worth a shilling, not because it had a shilling's worth of silver in it, but because the government said it was. This allowed the mint to produce huge quantities of silver coins without worrying about the fluctuating price of the metal. During the long reign of Queen Victoria, from 1837 to 1901, the Royal Mint, powered by new steam-driven presses, pumped out billions of silver coins. These coins, featuring the Queen's portrait at various stages of her life, from the young head to the Jubilee head, and finally the old head, circulated across a global empire. A Victorian shilling was as familiar in Sydney or Cape Town as it was in London. New denominations were introduced to meet the needs of the time. The florin, worth 2 shillings or 1/10 of a pound, was introduced in 1849 as a first step towards a possible decimal currency. The first godless florin was controversial because it omitted the traditional Dei gratia, or by the grace of God, from its inscription. Another new coin was the double florin, worth 4 shillings, but it was unpopular and short-lived. The silver crown, a large and impressive coin, was minted but didn't circulate widely, often being kept as a souvenir. The workhorses were the half crown, florin, shilling, sixpence, and the tiny silver threepence. These Victorian silver coins were symbols of British power, stability, and industrial might. They were minted to a high standard of purity, 92.5% silver, known as sterling silver, and were trusted everywhere. The designs, like Benedetto Castrucci's iconic St. George and the Dragon, which appeared on the silver crown, became classic symbols of the nation. For the average person, these coins represented a week's wages, a trip to the new music halls, or the price of food for the family. They were the tangible, everyday reality of money in an age of unprecedented change, the silver grease that kept the wheels of empire and industry turning. The 20th century was a brutal one for the silver coin. The huge cost of the First World War from 1914 to 1918 put immense strain on Britain's finances. The government needed to pay off huge debts to countries like the United States. Silver was a valuable commodity, and the nation's coinage represented a huge reserve of it. So, in 1920, a momentous decision was made. The silver content of Britain's coins was drastically reduced from the historic 92.5% sterling standard down to just 50%. For the first time in over 300 years, since the time of Elizabeth I, the intrinsic value of the nation's silver coinage was deliberately debased. This 50% silver alloy was used for all silver-coloured coins, from the half-crown down to the threepence. The public quickly noticed the difference. The new coins had a duller look and didn't ring with the same clear tone as the old sterling silver coins. This change marked the beginning of the end for silver as a part of daily life. The story repeated itself after the Second World War. Again, Britain was crippled by war debt. In 1947, silver was removed from circulating coinage altogether. The new silver coins were made from a cupro-nickel alloy, a mixture of copper and nickel. They looked similar, but they contained no precious metal at all. The age of silver currency, which had begun with the Celtic tribes 2,000 years earlier, was over. The old silver coins were gradually withdrawn from circulation, melted down to help repay war debts and for their metal value. Decimalisation in 1971 was the final nail in the coffin for the old system. The familiar shillings and florins, which had a direct link back to Anglo-Saxon and Tudor times, were replaced by the new p coins. The shilling, which had circulated for nearly 500 years, was finally demonetised. For a generation of people, the feel and weight of a real silver coin in their pocket was a thing of the past. The money of the realm was now purely functional, its value entirely based on government decree, with no link to the precious metal that had once been its soul. Yet, the story of the British silver coin did not end there. While it vanished from our change, it found a new life. The Royal Mint began to produce special commemorative coins in silver to mark major national events, like royal weddings or jubilees. More recently, it has started striking bullion coins, like the Silver Britannia. These are legal tender coins, but they are not intended for circulation. They are bought by collectors and investors for their silver content. In a way, the story has come full circle. The coin is once again valued for its precious metal, a tangible store of wealth, just like the hacked-up arm rings of the Vikings or the first shining pennies of an Anglo-Saxon